How's it going, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, here with another video on Borderlands 3 that, again, I'm a bit late to the party on, but no one has really covered it because it was so buried on Randy Pitchford's Twitter that unless you were actively looking for hints and secrets for Borderlands 3 on his Twitter, you wouldn't have found it, right? And you'd had to filter to tweets and replies on Randy's Twitter to be able to find it. Regardless, I want to show you the tweets that I'm talking about on the screen right now, and essentially it's Randy Pitchford suggesting that the tone of the next Borderlands game, Borderlands 3, is going to be closer to Borderlands 1 than Borderlands 2. And that's interesting because people usually prefer Borderlands 2 over Borderlands 1. But let's see the tweets in context and then we'll talk about it and see what I think. So there was another disagreement happening on Twitter. You don't really need to concern yourself with it, but Randy Pitchford was involved. And someone said to Randy that I strongly disagree with you on many things, Randy, and then he starts talking about the other thing. Randy then responds, curious, what do you disagree with me on? It's a bit of a typo there, but that's what he says. Someone else responds to that tweet saying, the direction Borderlands 2 took. I prefer the way weapons worked and the drier humor of Borderlands 1. And then this is the key tweet here. Randy Pitchford responded to that tweet by saying, that said, I love Borderlands 2, but I share your opinion about Borderlands 1. I think the tone in the next game is closer to 1 than 2. So this is a very interesting comment here. Because again, as I mentioned, whether it's gameplay, whether it's story, whether it's characters, whether it's even humor, the general consensus from what I can see in the Borderlands community is that fans usually prefer Borderlands 2 over Borderlands 1 in a lot of different regards. I know that there are fans out there that certainly prefer Borderlands 1, but even just from my perspective, I recently replayed Borderlands 1 and I can see why so many people like Borderlands 2 more, including myself. So this comment by Randy kind of took me off guard because I'm thinking, well, people loved Borderlands 2. Why would the tone of the next Borderlands game be closer to 1 than 2? And of course, he's not referring to stuff I don't believe anyways, like weapons, like gameplay, just like the mechanics of the game. I think in most regards, Borderlands 2 fundamentally, on a mechanical level and a feature level, was better than Borderlands 1. And I don't think Randy Pitchford, by referring to tone, is referring to those kinds of things. What I think he's talking about is things like the humor, things like the story, and maybe to an extent the characters in each of those games, because this is from memory. I haven't played Borderlands 2 in years and years and years, and I just replayed Borderlands 1, right? So I'm very acquainted with that game. But as this person tweeted out to Randy, the humor in Borderlands 1 is a little bit drier from memory than Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 had a lot of jokes. It was much more lively. It was much more fun. Yeah, there were some instances, and I talked to people on Twitter about this. Yeah, there were some really sad moments. I'm not going to mention those. But generally, the game had a much lighter vibe than Borderlands 1 did. Borderlands 1 felt like a much drier, more subdued video game. The humor, there were jokes there, but it wasn't as in your face as Borderlands 2 was. Borderlands 2 had characters like Tiny Tina and Torg that were just funny, at least if you thought they were funny, but they tried to be funny anyways. They were in your face, they were comical, and a lot of those themes permeated the game much more so than Borderlands 1. So I wonder, by saying that I think the tone in Borderlands 3 is going to be closer to 1 than 2, if he means that Borderlands 1 is going to take a much more serious direction, and I guess a much more subdued and less comical, less humorous direction than Borderlands 2 took. And if that's the case, I'm interested to know, what do you guys actually think about that? Did you like the humorous aspect of Borderlands 2 and its overall tone and theme over Borderlands 1, or did you prefer Borderlands 1 instead? And in either scenario, how do you feel about Borderlands 3 in this regard, kind of going back to Borderlands 1? I'm interested to see what you think, because in my opinion, I think I prefer Borderlands 2 though. I know at times the humor was cringy. I know at times like jokes were made and you were thinking, ah, you know, that's funny, but it wasn't really. It was kind of, you know, stupid, right? There was a lot of stupid jokes, but I still preferred the more uplifting nature of Borderlands 2 and the comical nature of that game as opposed to Borderlands 1, because Borderlands 1, after a while, again, especially after just replaying it, the humor isn't there. It's a little bit more serious in tone. The story isn't interesting, and I think that if it's going to be a serious story, like I think Borderlands 1 was trying to be without all the jokes, etc., it needs to have a good story to back that up, and I don't think Borderlands 1 had that. So if Borderlands 3 is going back to the tone of Borderlands 1, God, I hope it has a good story that actually keeps you intrigued because without that, I don't know whether it's going to feel as fun as Borderlands 2 did, or at least feel as enjoyable as Borderlands 2 did. So anyways, Wastelanders, I would love to get your thoughts on this. Please let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this has been A Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.